It's 5:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to keep an eye on the participants block. So, if you're waiting on someone who isn't in here yet, I'll let them in if I see them pop up. But I do want to get the program going because we do have a lot of exciting things to talk about. So just a little bit of housekeeping. If you missed before, my name is Emily Kelly Joseph. I am the volunteer coordinator here at Wellfleet Preservation Hall. Normally, we would be having all of you here at the hall, but COVID, so you're all at home, which is fun for me because I can see into all of your little homes. How lovely. And I also have Susie Nielsen on the call. I think you're muted at the moment, Susie. So you want to unmute and say hi?
Hi, everybody. And anyone I don't know, nice to meet you.
Hi there.
Susie Nielsen is the reason that this show is currently hanging at the hall. She is our visual arts coordinator extraordinaire, and she owns Farm Gallery just down the road. So she is really the brains behind this operation. And between the two of us, we're going to be chatting with all the artists that are here on the call. Bert has put together a beautiful slideshow so you can get a feel for the work, even if you can't come to the hall. But I will let you know if you're on Cape Cod, please come in. The show's going to be up for another, I think, 3 weeks until November 6th. It's a beautiful show. It's on all three levels of our hall at the moment, and I'd love for you guys to come in. We're here Thursdays and Fridays from 11 till 4. If that doesn't work for you, just give us a call and we can set up an appointment to have you come in and take a look at the work. And just a little bit of housekeeping. It's best if you just mute yourself so we don't pick up background sound to distract from the artists. And if you change your settings to speaker view as opposed to gallery view, the person who's speaking will be highlighted and you'll have a better view of them, and you'll have a better view of Bert's slideshow that he's about to do. And Susie, do you have anything you want to share, or do you want to just roll in?
Just go for it.
I'm gonna roll in. All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Bert, who I've been working with a lot. He's a wonderful artist, and he's done a lot to make this virtual artist talk interesting for you viewers at home. So thank you for joining us, Bert. And let's see if I can figure out how to get you to share your screen.
Yeah, something comes up that's not related to me.
Let's see. Did you try sharing your screen?
I'm going to right now.
All right.
I keep something, this Microsoft thing keeps coming up. I have no idea what it is. Oh, hold on. Let me see. It's just the desktop. Oh, hold on.
Isn't
there
technology fun? There we go. Look at that.
Okay.
And
so,
sorry, Bert, before you begin, I just want to let the audience know that Susie and I have a couple of questions, but if people have other questions that they want to ask, you can either just unmute yourself and ask towards the end, or you can put them right in the chat section and we'll relay them to the artists. Let's see, Dario can't hear anything. Let's see, Dario, can you hear us now? Well, we'll go ahead and get started and we'll get Dario in on here, okay? Go ahead, Bert, thank you.
What I've done is just put together a show of the exhibition and then images from each individual participating artist if we have time. You can see a few images of what people do individually. But first I wanted to thank Emily and Susie from the Wellfleet Preservation Hall for allowing us to have this exhibition. It's been great. It's a really nice show. It's a beautiful facility. I know that all of you were able to register, and you could even make a little donation if you cared to. It's a great institution that does a lot for the community. And then 2 buildings down is where Susie is in Farm Projects, which is a wonderful gallery. It's got a great show up right now, Nancy Berlin. So if any of you are in the area, you should take a look. This is first image, and it belongs to Yvette Dubinsky and Vicky Tomayko. And perhaps Susie or Emily might want to start the questioning so that we can go through this image and a few more while they talk about or answer your questions.
Sure. Well, we have a couple questions that are kind of to the general group. And the first one, Susie, I can't see you, so I'm going to go ahead and just do the first question that we have. It's how did these collaborations come about? How did you all start working together?
Do you want Vicky and I to talk about this one?
Sure. Well, you can talk about how you came together, or you can talk about this next one.
These are the two that are in the show that we could talk about. We also
Yep.
have a whole show of a collaborative show. How did it come about? We are friends. We walk together in the mornings, sometimes here. We live about a quarter of a mile apart. And one day, Vicky came over and said, there's this event happening at Castle Hill, which is a center near us, and art center near us, and they had a big steamroller, and it had been something I'd wanted to try. She knew I wanted to try it, so she said, want to go over there? We gathered materials, ink and old paper that we were going to throw out anyway, and something to make stencils with, and we went to this community event where their steamroller truck was running over things on the driveway to make prints, big ones. And Vicky, why don't you go on? You're here. I think you.
Yeah, so we did make some prints. I think we started maybe 3 prints that day. We had made a few stencils in advance, and then we made some more while we were there. And all we did was and they were mostly paper stencils, like a sturdy paper. We inked them up with oil-based ink and slapped them down on our paper and had the steamroller run over them. And they were pretty terrible, actually, looking. But we decided, well, maybe we can fix them up. So Yvette has a large press in her studio here in Truro. So we just switched over to working on them there. And one thing led to another. We started using better paper. We started just kind of experimenting and doing things that neither of us had actually ever done before. Using the stencils over and over again, inking them up solid, printing them again when they had very little ink left on them, and moving them around. And you can see there in the work that you see here, there are a lot of repetitive shapes. And another thing that we did, I was teaching a monoprinting from the figure class at the Provincetown Art Association and Museum. And Yvette decided to take that class. So we both made stencils from the model, Natasha. This one is called Natasha's Rainbow. It's named after her. And the reference to rainbow comes from the idea that those colors in the background, that's called a rainbow roll, or sometimes a blend, when you let one color fade into another. And you do that with a big roller. And so we just started playing with those stencils in addition. And we've been working together for, I don't know, about 4 years maybe?
I think, yes.
Yeah.
And we still take walks. So
Yeah.
Bert has some other images of our work together.
Yeah. But the other thing is that we work together. Like, we're in the studio together, making decisions together, cutting out the shapes together, deciding who's going to do what. It's a little different than most of the other collaborations that you'll hear about today, where people just do something and then exchange the work with someone else. So Yvette and I are actually creating like a new art entity. We're like making a third person. That's how we feel about it anyway. I don't know.
It's different.
You
It
can make
comes
your own
out
decision.
different from what we would do individually. Very different.
Yeah, very different.
Well, I'll move on to this next image then, so that this is Hayoon-Jay Lee and mine, and I'll let Hayoon speak about how we first started and where it went. Are you there?
Hi, yeah, I just unmuted. I'm probably the most strangest one in here. Anyway, I don't know anybody there very much except Bert and Paul. I think Vicky a little bit. 2009, I was a summer Fine Art Work Center residence there. And then really enjoyed the time there from when I finished my master's degree at Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore. I got the honor to be there. So when I got there, people are awesome. And also the work center was really amazing for me. It's kind of eye-opening experience for me, actually. So for 2 months, I took some classes with Bert, Monoprint, and I took some classes with Paul Bowen also. And then, you know, end of the residency program, I had a lot of monoprints. Some are great and some are not, but some of them remaining I don't really like those very much, but yet the colors were really kind of interesting. There's possibility. So I cut out the circular shape, all of them, the leftovers, you know, papers. And then Bert visited my studio to take a look what I've been doing. And then we start talking about doing some collaboration work. That's where it began, actually.
Yeah, I think we started, we did some there in person with each other, passing them back and forth. And then we also sent things through the mail. So it was kind of a hybrid experience with us. This particular print, actually both are mixed media. There's collage, ink, watercolor, drawing, monoprint on pretty much both of them. And I think maybe like Vicky and Yvette said, you create kind of a third person. At least I think that's kind of what, especially I think these two are about. If we go to the next, which is myself and Paul Bowen and Michael Landis, I'll let Michael start talking about these because Michael is the king of collaborators. He's been collaborating with people for, I don't know, how long, Michael? Speak up.
I don't know, maybe 30 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer. Yeah, it's been I don't know. I keep getting myself involved in these things. I don't remember when the three of us actually started, but I'm gonna say it was in the late 90s. Does that sound right?
It's been over 20 years. I know that.
Yeah, because we had our first show and
Turn the light on, MP, please.
you know, all right, hang on. I gotta turn my light on. Somebody else say something.
Yeah, I have been trying to remember when we started, and I mean, we'd obviously been doing it for a while. We had an exhibition in Greenfield, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
which I live
That better?
half an hour away from now, strangely.
Yeah. We were able to close that gallery with this exhibition. I believe.
Not the last,
No, they were
not
few
the
more.
first or the last gallery we closed.
But most of these are, I mean, we spend a lot of time mailing things back and forth for a long time. We're still doing it. But then we get together and spend a lot of time laughing and trying to figure out whether they're done.
Yeah. And if they're not, then we pass them on and we go back. And we do actually finish a lot of work. We've got a huge number of pieces.
We do.
Yeah.
We have they're in the hundreds.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
we all have to agree.
and worse.
Yeah. We all need to agree. And these, of course, these are images that are in the show that are framed up. And the show is at 3 levels in Preservation Hall. And most of these are, 14 by 11 in that range. And this, let's see, this is the last one of the group that Paul and Michael and I do. And this one is a collaboration between Vicky and myself. We're partners, although we're on different levels. She's upstairs, I'm downstairs. This piece is called Demonstration. Vicky, you want to talk about it?
Okay. When I'm teaching, I try to show a lot of different ways to make imagery with monoprinting, and a lot of it is very loose, and I don't know what to make of it when I'm done. I'm not thinking really about making an image when I'm doing it. It's more about the technique, showing people, oh, you could do this with a brush, or you could do this with a roller, etc., etc. So I end up with a lot of stuff that I don't really know what to do with, but it seems like maybe somebody else might know what to do with it. So Bert's pretty good at figuring things out. He likes collage. He knows how to cut things really well with an X-Acto knife. He's the king of X-Acto knives, as far as I can tell. And he's good with glue. And then, you know, he makes his own crazy monoprints too. So they kind of seem to work out all right.
Well, this piece, every piece of visual language, except a tiny, tiny bit of drawing, but every piece of visual language is all Vicky's. There were two 30 by 22 demonstration plates that the pieces that she made, and I just cut things up and reassembled. So all the language is Vicky's. And I don't know if this is another piece, and I don't know if Susie or Emily has any other questions that they want to throw in while we're doing this. Please let me know if we're rattling on. This is another.
Keep going.
This is another piece where it's a lot of Vicky's language, and then I painted in a lot, and then she drew in a lot. And I think we did a lot of them together, or at least in the same studio space, but not like she and Yvette worked, I think, not that kind of symbiosis. We just kind of passed them back and forth, but we were kind of together when we were doing some of them, and some of them when we were apart when I was still living in Vermont. Wow. This particular piece is a monoprint. All the blue is a monoprint of mine, which I reversed, and then all the white is a dry point of Vicky's that I cut up and collaged and put on top of the monoprint surface, and then the upper part, the kind of lip portion, was painted on. So that's how that one was constructed. This is
It's a wacky one.
Another construction, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tape.
Again, this started as a demo, like that crazy figure down at the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something that would appear in my work normally, but you know, when I'm not thinking and I'm working, sometimes weird things come out.
This, I had a gigantic mass of woodcuts, and I used a particular color that was highly fugitive. So like a day after I ran the print, the color below the chin of that black half of a face used to be bright pink, and it started turning color. So I had a whole lot of these, and so I gave about a dozen to Vicky, and she began to collage things, and we passed them back and forth and drew. And this is another one where there's drawing, collage, lithographic transfer. What else, Vic?
There might be some, yeah, that's mostly what it is, a little bit of painting on there. Some dry point. I also was experimenting with learning a technique called a waterless lithography technique. So it's just a simplified form of lithography. And I got a lot of stuff out of that I didn't know really what to do with, because I was just learning. But these were really fun. I loved the shapes. that the fugitive color and the shapes that, you know, they were kind of simple to start with. So it was really fun to work on.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, and this goes for all the collaborators, but when you look at this work, I mean, it appears that there's these narratives or some kind of a story. A lot of it is abstract, but do you find that it's more that you're working together to create a narrative, like a story, or are you more in conversation with each other, reacting, answering each other's comments, in a sense, visual comments?
I'll let Yvette maybe would like to say something about that. Maybe Paul and Michael.
Okay, now I can answer. That was Susie talking, right?
Yes, that was Susie.
As you were talking, I was thinking that it's more the second, that it's more formal than that. And the story emerges. I mean, we didn't realize we were making work about the environment. I don't know if you're going to show those, Bert. Like this one, but also the other three that we.
I just have the two that are in the show.
Oh, okay. We realized we were talking about the weather. We were talking about the caterpillars that were on the road. We were talking about the plants that we saw and the animals and the day moving on and the sun changing and the wind blowing. And we didn't realize we were doing that until we looked at the work and it was nearly done. So we were kind of doing it unconsciously, but not. What we talked about was, well, we like this shape and it should go over here maybe, or do you like it over here, or what color yellow are we talking about? And see the two different yellows in this one probably was a decision made with color aid paper. And they're formal decisions, I think, but at least that's what we talked about. But then when we backed away, we realized we had other content things going on.
Well, I think that's what's so interesting and clear about most art, I guess, in general. But when you look at these now, I mean, there's all kinds of, things you could say that they're about, or the stories, or I could come up with a whole thing that you weren't even thinking. But it's clear that, like the example you were just showing was about climate and the wind and all those things you just described. I mean, I can literally see in that piece, in that blue piece you just had. Bert, I don't know if you want to go back to it. But one more. Yeah, I mean, that's, I see wind, I see water and sun and changing leaves. And so I think it is so interesting how your conscious and your unconscious are really working together. And when you're not conscious of your unconscious, you actually make better work, it seems. Or I shouldn't say better, but strong work that even though you think you're doing this formally, it's also coming from like within you. So
good point.
I think a contributing factor in that is the editing process that the other artists or artists use on what they receive. And so, for instance, in this image, the pale vertical forms is like a man's head and a flower or something that are pale. They might originally have been, I don't know, but they might have been very assertive, very much on the surface, up in your face. And it looks like one of us put a white wash over the top of that, which in effect, of course, pushes it back. But in a way, it's also saying not so harsh.
Right.
It's editing in more than one way. It's either agreeing, disagreeing, or having some more neutral sort of place. And I'm just sort of realizing that by looking at these. And then the next person did a black thing that echoes those forms in the back, but is sort of reasserting something, but on a different level and on a very frontal level. So the editing process is editing what you might call content as well as the visual formality things going on. And I realized that I think the part of the process is that one consciously, I don't want that bloody eyebrow there, that Bert put there or something. and then next time round he said, "Oh yes, I do," So it's like there is like this nonverbal communication.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, MP might want to chime in, but
well, yeah, I've just been thinking about how, working with two, there's three of us, and that's very different than any other way I've collaborated before. And I think with the three of us, there's a lot of inside jokes going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of making fun of ourselves and each other in this work, which, I mean, I think we laugh a lot. I laugh a lot when I'm working on these. I know when we are together dealing with this stuff, we laugh a lot. Yeah. But that sort of three-way conversation is really intriguing to me, because it's I don't know. It's just the things we come up with. Again, we all keep talking about how it's something that none of us would come up with on our own. Right. But in terms of narrative, I don't think there's any intentional narrative, but a lot of the work sort of ends up with one because of all these inside jokes and references. And yeah. Another thing that's interesting, I think in a lot of the work, it's hard to tell who did what because of the mimicking and, sort of making fun of each other.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just been, I have a great time working on these because they're just fun. I mean, we have a lot of fun together. When we're together, we have a lot of fun when we send them out, and Michael would say, "Good grief, this is, what did you do here?" And Paul would say, "I can't stand this." And, but in the end, what it has also done, which I think is really important, it has opened up my work, my own work,
Absolutely.
in ways that I would have never, ever done. And it's just because of that collaboration. It's, it's very special. And I think that's true in the other collaborations that I've done with Vicky and with Jay. And I'm sure, Michael has a whole different levels of people that he's collaborated with, a lot of writers and so forth. So
music.
Yeah. So that whole experience is I think just really refreshing for the work.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions. Is that okay?
Ask them,
please.
So can you go back to the MP, Paul, and Bert pieces, the swing, maybe in particular? Well, can you go to the flowers? So there's a couple things I wanted to say. One is that I think when you're saying that these are funny, to me, not knowing the process, although I do know two of the three, so I have maybe a little more insight than someone who just say comes into farm or the hall and sees it. I don't necessarily think that of this as funny, but I think that because of the play, which is such a good time, literally a good time to make art is when you're playing, because every artist, the whatever amount of years between the three of you that you have the experience of mark making goes into each piece you're doing, whether you're blindfolded or not thinking. So that is where the real strong work comes in. But then also because of the play, it all comes together so beautifully. But when I look at this piece in particular, which happens to be something that was hanging at farm, that is a piece that had not sold, but there are so many people that have commented on this piece. And I know there's a figure in there because I know MP, some of MP, and I don't even know if it's MP and Bert's work, but because of the flowers, that points to me that I'm supposed to be looking for flowers. So I like that kind of play between that. And I think you do that with swing also. It says swing, and then, can you go to that one, Bert? It's the next one, I think. No, one more.
I think it's swim.
Swing, this one. Oh,
This one, yeah.
I think
Swing.
it's swim. Is it?
Oh, I thought that said SWING.
There's a G over there.
Oh, you just ruined it.
Well,
Ah.
swimming is good too. And
Yeah.
then down there it says, and be still.
Yeah.
So then it gives those marks a different frame of reference. But yet at the same time, you can also look at it as little pieces apart that all work really beautifully together without a narrative, you know? And of course, what I love is that the stories or whatever is there, I don't really know what you're talking about. I just think that there's something going on that I want to be part of, you know? So,
You know, a lot
And
of
you know, also maybe one element is that we've known, the three of us have known each other a very, very long time. So we know each other's work really in depth, and so we're playing with that too, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know a lot about each other's lives, and that, you know, there's a lot of that in there too. In case
that's the scary part.
the lives.
These are probably way more naked than we should allow.
Frozen here. Hold on. Okay.
Now I'm looking for naked.
Well, in the work.
So Susie, did you have any other question?
well, one last comment for now, that I think all of you, looking at all the work, it's all, you can see each of your work in all of the work, but yet it doesn't feel like three people or two people. It becomes like perfectly what Vicky said, another person.
Yeah.
But I also just want to give you guys credit, because artists can get really attached to the outcome and to their making and to what they're trying to do, which is kind of the like opposite of what art is supposed to be. We're supposed to be loose all the time and open, the most open-minded people, and we can get rigid. And all of you are to be able to work so well with each other and do such strong work. That really says a lot about you all, as not only as people, but as artists. Like, that's really taking chances, I think.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, for me, with, you know, working with Michael and Paul, working with everybody, I respect their individual work so much and their opinions. And Michael and Paul and I mean, we would disagree on things and argue about things, but it always ends up in a laugh. I mean, in the sense that, hey, we all have to say this is done before we, you know, initial it. And you know, Vicky and I did the same thing, and Jay and I did the same thing. So,
you know, and one thing I've just sort of thought of, and that is that perhaps these are not particularly good examples of it, but I think as we've sort of matured a bit, doing it for so long, is that I've noticed that I'm willing to accept that one of the three their input might dominate in any one particular piece, and that the other two have like a lesser input, but that the contribution of something that might superficially seem to be fairly minor is sometimes enough. It doesn't have to be a third.
yeah.
You know, that you want a more syncopated kind of thing than that, I think. And that gives it more dynamism, I think, too, you know.
I also think they're like conversations, you know, and I think in music, in theater, artists collaborate, so they work off of each other. And I think, you know, two people working create a back and forth dialogue. I like the idea of three people working on a piece, because suddenly it's circular. So it's not, you know, a ping pong ball, a tennis ball going back and forth. Now it has a circular kind of vision. And it's rare in art. I mean, I remember in college, you know, the teacher coming up and drawing on my drawing, and I was like horrified, you know. But I think you can't not talk about ego in this whole process too. You know, where do you begin? Where do you leave off? How do you interact with each other? You know, did he make a mark on top of something that you drew, or, you know, those little things? But I don't think any of it can be bad, because it's, you know, it doesn't come out with an opinion that is less than the three of you together, or two of you, the collaboration.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, so much of it, going back sort of what Susie was saying, is it's the loss of control, giving up control over your work, which to me has been a big teacher in the way I work with my own work as well. But it's just like letting go. Like, I can't decide this is done. And that was one of the rules we sort of made up early on, is once you do something, you have to pass it on. You can't say this is done now. Yeah. And sort of just giving up that control is both hard initially, but also becomes just, you know, a relief in a lot of ways, which is nice.
So who makes the first mark and who makes the last mark?
Well, we've all done that.
Yeah, there's no keeping track of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell each other stop.
We have so much
work.
Stuff. We have over probably 200 that are quote unquote completed, and another maybe 300 right now that are making the rounds.
We've had some fairly large exhibits of the finished work.
Yeah.
In the past.
Our first show, which was really one of our best probably, was at 55 Mercer in New York, which was the oldest cooperative in New York at the time, where a lot of artists had got their start. And we had huge amount of collabs. We put them all up, you know, as a gigantic montage. But then we had
our installed it. Yeah.
And then we had a set that were framed, and we had the montage was unframed. So it was great. And then 2 months after that, the gallery closed.
No, not that soon. It still goes on, just not in the same, you know, the original space.
But this is the last image of the exhibition. There are 18 pieces that are in the exhibition. And now I have some individual works from the individual artists. This is Jay. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
And maybe you would want to talk a little bit. I'll just go through your images and talk a little bit about what you do.
Okay, now my study in New York City, and after travel all over different places, I am kind of a nomadic person. I go to, I'm based in New York, but I go to China or Korea or America residency program at different places. And this piece is I have done in Nebraska, which there was like a lot of drought and they're very hot there in summer. And I felt like there are so many people are starvation with the hunger issues in this world. And I felt like I have to paint something while I'm there. So this painting came out of from that residency program. This is a it's kind of a landscape, like a big spoonful of individual grain of rice. And this is also one of them. I had a show at Gallery Chinese American Art Council in New York last year. This is also actual rice piece with the gold leaf. Actually, it's gold. It's something to do with this title of this artwork is Eternal Mother, which is very important to my heritages, because I feel like I have two mothers, America and my hometown in our country in Korea. So this pieces came from that idea. And then I always like to be nurtured. This piece, I got invited to Gwangju Museum of Art in South Korea, did installation and interactive work with the project I did. Was I did research based on how many people are lost their business during the difficult time in South Korea during the 2014, 15, 60 through 2019. And those are both of on the ground are people who lost their businesses. They sold off their businesses, and then they discarded their objects, whatnot. And I was there in summer to find those objects from dumpsters and garbage, and then also secondhand stores. Sometimes I visited their home to get some donation from them. And on the wall, there is rice paper burned. I did burn them, do some texture. I would like to create some of those. And then I was able to made a foam. It's like a woman's, like mother, like body, like shape, which goes with this nurturing kind of a theme. And at the exhibition, there's a lot of people are expressing their feelings about what is food associated with their body and mind and spirit, and politically be involved also. So it's something to do with that piece. I don't want to go. I don't want to go on too much, but this piece, and all the way top there is 1960 bicycle is on the roof, ceiling, but you can see very well.
Oh,
because
yeah.
those bicycle usually for a lot of people are. Those are the very important object for household or business. Without the bicycle, they cannot make money to support their families and business. So that is my one of the collection, antique one. I had that. And other part is there's iron cast big gigantic big bowl in the center. You can't even barely see it because it's mixed with all those things. And those iron cast bowl is for cooking, mainly for rice. So when Korean people has a war or uprising, such as the Gwangju uprising issues, at the time, all those women get together to cook bunch of rice to support people who needed to feed. So someone called me, I'm a rice goddess. Perhaps I am. I call myself the rice goddess. So I've been working with the food related issues, the social consciousness, also personally has some history based on that. So that was last summer I did 2019. Yeah, so just a brief, I love to explore. I do installation, performance, printmaking, painting, drawing, whatever I can. I just think it's expressing my feelings and share with the people is very important to me as an artist, and then open up the dialogue like this. So I have to say thank you to Bert, because when I was in Fine Art Work Center for 2 months, I didn't know what direction I had to go. And then I took the Paul Bowen's class. I got a lot of feedback from Paul. And I got a lot of insightful philosophical conversation with the Bert. It was very inspirational for me. So far I'm still running, going to different places and trying to figure out how can my voice can be heard or share with the people around me. So that's it. Make short.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is MP.
Hi, this is a new body of work I started in February. It's note composition. So each individual piece is a note. I'm thinking of them that way anyway. And eventually I'd like to show these as installations where the notes would be pinned right next to each other, sort of filling up entire walls. And again, sort of thinking about them as musical notes individually, and then as a group, as composition. Eventually, I'd like to get musicians to actually come and play the pieces in the venues wherever they would show. But it's sort of a lot of my ideas coming together in this work, where it's just collecting material and data. It starts in the kitchen with coffee stains and whatever's going on in the kitchen, and then it sort of moves into the studio. And yeah, I don't know, it's I think I have around 600 of them so far. Each month I sort of pull out 15 to sort of look at and title, and that's the ones you would be seeing here, or some of the ones I've sort of pulled out to look at and consider finish as an individual piece.
Are they all the same size, MP? Are they all the same size?
Yes, they're all 12 by 9 inches. It's a heavy watercolor paper. And I start 60 every month.
When you look at them again and perhaps edit them, do you add to them at that point, or just pick or discard?
No, they just go back on the pile. If you know, I like I said, I actually each month at the end of the month I'll choose 30 sort of ones that I feel like I want to consider as being, you know, quote unquote finished. 15 of which I sign. The other 15 I sort of save for an exhibition in the future, because I feel like they sort of freeze that work for that month in a way, or what's going on. But no, I never sort of go back into them. They kind of, it's more of a you know, a looking, reviewing what's there than you know, with this work, it's a lot about that, of just letting things happen, not sort of making formal decisions.
But what's interesting, MP, is the fact that you have such a system for and a structure for the work, which is just, you know, really loose and open. But your system is like, you know, very consistent. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How you put the work, the body of it together like that.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time in different ways, and I feel like this is the first time I've kind of organized it before I started instead of after.
Cool.
And it's always easily identifiable as Michael.
Yes.
Regardless of how many drips there are with circles. It's always MP.
You're saying it's self-parody?
So it's sort of memory of another gesture. You know, it's like the record of, like, you put something down or pick something up, and this is the memory of it.
Absolutely, yeah. The artifact of experience, yeah.
They're wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is Yvette.
Hi, this is a series of monoprints that I made about migration, and it sort of grew as it evolved. I started with circular paper, and I ended up at the end with some rectangular paper. They're all on handmade paper, and they're many layers through the press, many times through the press. They start with a map of a place on the first layer, which I put on with a photo emulsion process, a cyanotype, and then I bleached it out in some cases, some not. There are about 15 of these, and I think I just got, through traveling, I got a sense of how many people were walking around the world and trying to leave where they were. And then when I started reading more, I learned more about people migrating in the United States too. So there's some of these have to do with the Great Migration from the south to the north. But we traveled in Syria in about 2009, and I started this series when I knew some people who were having to leave, and I was obsessed with it for a while. So I did so many stencils about it. This is also about migration, although in a very different way. You wouldn't know it was the same artist, different from MP. But this is more playful, more experimental. On the bottom, the dots and the paint marks are a monoprint with water-based ink, well, some. And then on top of that, I played with cyanotype emulsion. There's a fig. I have also a series of vegetables and fruit that are photographic, highly photographic. And so I cut one out and put it in there because I was thinking about me being here stable and my family being here stable and eating lunch while all this tumult was happening all over the world. So that is the title of this piece is Fig for Lunch. I'm eating my fig for lunch. The fig was grown somewhere in the Middle East. This is a monotype, like the monotypes that was underneath that other one and earlier, done on my press many times through the press. What I did that was different for this one was to scan part of it and print it on a transparency and put it on the top so that I could get some of the same marks that are in there, but bigger. I blew it up and put it on top. So it looks like one thing, but it's actually two layers, physical layers. Although there are many layers on the first layer, many layers, many times through the press on the first layer. It took a while to build up all of that density. There's just one transparent layer on top, which gives it its kind of punch. It's like I collaborated with myself.
That's good. Who's that?
You're muted, Mr. Bowen. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So
There
this
you go.
is one of mine, and it's from this spring, and it's from a body of work, mostly small pieces, like about the size of my laptop or a bit smaller, a few larger, and they're a mix of wood and tar and gesso. In the previous one, the dark material is from my fishing coat from when I was a kid. I started fishing seriously when I was about 11, beach fishing in Wales. And my parents bought me what the Brits call an oilskin, and here we call it a slicker. And it's a beautiful material. And I've reused it in a variety of pieces, and this is left over from a little, probably from a sleeve or something. So there's a wooden support, and that's stretched over it. And so this last one, that one there, started off with this form in the center. This is probably about 20 by 25 inches, something like that. Again, with tar covered cotton. And that form in the center, if you rotate it 90 degrees, left or right, it sort of looks like a map of New England. And I hadn't intended it to, and it just wouldn't keep going away. And one of the maps looked like the Cape, and this one looks a bit more like Vermont. And it was just very insistent. I couldn't get rid of it. And then out of the blue, I realized that that form is almost identical from a Blanche Lozelle painting that's in the Provincetown Art Association collection. And I forget, she did a series of paintings called Abstracts. And it's not at all my favorite body of work of hers, but this form just sort of appeared, and I just couldn't get rid of it. I mean, I'm still hoping if I ever get this back, I'm going to attack it again. So we'll see. So it's a very cohesive body of work, which sort of surprised me, and it's rather somber, and it seemed, despite myself, to take on the spirit of what we've been living through. But again, in recent months, but again, there are a lot of Provincetown references, piers and the beach and stuff like that. And there's like the exhibition that all these pieces, about 15 of them were in, was called Tar Flats. Flats being the mud flats in Provincetown Harbor, and the tar really being a reference to the way that fishermen used to tar their nets before synthetic nets took over. And you can still find tarred objects out there. And anyway, so that's what I've been up to. Thanks.
I'm curious, Paul, and thought about it when I saw them. It's such a wonderful intersection of like 2D design and 3D design, so to speak, that you're dealing with a graphic element, a painterly element, and sculptural elements.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, are these 3-dimensional drawings, or are they 2-dimensional sculptures? Or, you know, especially because they're on the wall, and a lot of these were frontal, I responded to them like they were paintings or,
Yeah.
you know, a surface to encounter like that.
I ask myself the same question all the time, and it's an embarrassment to tell you that I was once a painter, and the tar was my chosen medium, and
Huh?
so all these years later, I've come back to it.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked. Good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and really, it's whether something is a painting or a sculpture or a relief or you know, any of those things. I've sort of, it's whatever it is. It's, you know, you just do what you do, and then you slap a name on it afterwards if you have
A
to.
new genre.
Yeah,
I always had to check that box on
new genres.
applications.
Yeah, there's no video in it though.
I didn't know what it was.
Not yet.
Wow.
This is Vicky's. Gorgeous.
Yes. That's amazing, isn't it?
Where are you, Vicky? Is Vicky still here?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are.
So I
What
think I
beauty.
gave you
She has a cat.
3 monoprints, and they're all, I believe, from the show I had at the schoolhouse this summer. They're all about 26 by maybe 20 or 19, something like that. And I chose all of the work to be kind of joyful. I was feeling like, well, not about escaping from the way the world is right now, but more about how we can learn from nature, and that if we really look at the natural world, we can make the whole world better for the human race as well. So joyful but not escapist. And then that last one, yeah, that one is called Paradise. And this was actually done as a kind of commission. Chris Busa asked myself and Joanne Barkin, who I've been also collaborating with for a number of years, if we would make a piece for the Provincetown Arts magazine about the arrival of the Pilgrims. So I called this Paradise, and it really is about how, when the Pilgrims arrived, this world was about to change drastically, and so many things that happened were not particularly positive. And Joanne wrote a wonderful text to go along with it, but I don't have that handy right now, so I can't share it. But it was a nice project. I don't often do commissions, and so this felt kind of fun to do. And they're all monoprints, all one-of-a-kind prints with many layers and many additions on top.
Could you just go back, Bert, a couple, just to see them again? The first, yeah.
Yeah,
They're all great.
thanks. Here goes my dog.
Last.
Mm.
This is an installation, a fragment of a larger installation that was in my studio, and this was in the show at the fabulous Susie Nielsen's Farm Projects, just down the street from Pres Hall. And when our current evil occupant of the White House was elected, I started doing these flags out of rags and acetate and paper towels and so forth. It's called #flag 1/20/2017 ... until. And when I was doing these things, I began to really enjoy playing with materials and so forth. And so I continued to just do different things and with different objects. And when I moved here in 2018, basically I picked up everything I've ever done in 50 years. And so some of the objects that are in this installation come from 1976 when I was a fellow. Some of them objects that I've had in my studio, pieces that I found. So the piece itself is called Materia Prima, signs and portents. Materia prima being first matter, which is an alchemical term. And it's basically making base material, transforming it into spirit, which is, I think, an enterprise that most artists are engaged in. So this is a kind of an ongoing, constantly evolving installation that responds to various spaces, interior spaces. This was a small painting that's called Abitante 4. Abitante is an Italian word that means dweller. It's about 10 inches square, and it's watercolor, ink, gouache, and flashe. And this is a piece that's on a grommeted canvas, an old piece of canvas that's deteriorated. I started this piece in probably 1980. The left-hand form with all the white and the kind of umber sienna color was partially done in 1980, and I just rolled it up. And when I moved, I picked this thing up, I opened it up, and the piece on the right is a portion of kind of my folk rendition of Giovanni Di Paolo's painting that's in the Met, which is called The Creation of the World and the Expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden. And I just took the one portion of the painting and did my own kind of bad copy of it, almost folk-like. But it's a painting, it's one of my favorite paintings. It's an amazing painting, very small one. This circular image is basically his rendition of the creation of the world. In the painting, on the upper portion of the painting, the figure of God is coming down and touching that circular portion and giving life to the world. And the painting is called Creation Myth. So, and it's about 6.5 feet by 4.5 feet. So those are the pieces that I wanted you to see. That concludes the fabulous visual presentation of all our work that's in the show and some individual pieces. If anybody has questions.
Yeah, and say congrats. It was a very interesting hour.
Thank you. Glad you liked it.
Wonderful. Bert, thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions that they want to reach out at the moment? If not, I did record this. I will send it out to all of you, and perhaps artists, if it's okay with you, maybe I'll include your contact information if guests want to reach out, on their own and ask questions that they may have. But otherwise.
So this is John and Joanne. Thank you very much. This was interesting and lots of fun.
Also, it's great to hear. I think it's always great to hear artists talk about their own work, and for you to, especially if you've seen it first and have an objective idea of what you think, or a personal idea of what you think is going on, and then to hear them talk about the intent or what they've come up with and how they've gotten there is great. And you all did a great job, really. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I see some names from New York and from Hanover, New Hampshire, and so forth. Thank you, friends from afar, for viewing. We really appreciate it. And thank you again to Emily and Susie and the Pres Hall for hosting our show.
And you, Bert, for all your hard work in putting all this together.
Yes, you did.
Herding
always
sheep.
herding a bunch of crazy cats.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. I love all you guys. It's great to see
Great
my
job,
friends.
Bert. Great job, Emily, and all
Thank
the
you.
artists. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Love to
Lovely.
all.
Thank you,
Please
everyone.
vote.
Thank you
Vote,
very much.
vote, vote,
Vote.
vote.
Have a wonderful weekend.